Opasawasumka. Here's an Instagram picture. It's an Instagram picture, but here's the problem. Even though, oh, okay, well, I guess this does give link. It does give some credit. This is Kalaslos. This is probably a lot of refraction and a lot of reflection. And I was going to say it looks like Octane, and indeed it is Octane. Especially running on my laptop, this would start getting super dangerous super quickly as far as render time. We can try and mock something up super quickly. Mock something up super quick if we can do a very, very, very simplified version of it. And something I've actually been a little bit curious about, and it's really interesting, but when I look at a lot of the daily renders, and it makes perfect sense. If you're doing a daily render, you don't have time to do a lot of stuff. So a lot of those turn into, like, you go and you spend some time and you model kind of a simple piece of geometry, something not too crazy. So I could say take that and extrude it up, and maybe grab this edge and extrude it out. Maybe maybe I'll grab just that polygon and I'll do a little inner extrude and then pull it in. And now we've got these two stripe guys. I can hit I for inner extrude and don't preserve the group and pull them both in. Hit D for extrude, pull those both in just a little bit. Maybe now we grab all three of those, hit D for extrude, I'm going to pull them all out. And it really just turns into, like, make one really sexy piece of geometry, like spend some time to make a gizmo or take apart a typewriter and then focus on making one little part from that typewriter. And if you make one little sexy piece of geometry, you can start cloning it and copying it and moving it all over the place to the point where it starts looking really cool. Maybe I'll pull those out. So I'm doing this to get some relatively clean geometry. I'm going to pull this up and then go new, new, new. Now we've kind of got this whole grid section going. I can grab all those guys. Maybe not that, but that's... I'm going to hit I for inner extrude. Yes, preserve groups. Pull them all in. I'm going to pull in again, but this time don't preserve groups. So now I can shrink those all in just a little bit. Hit D for extrude. I can actually start pulling these out, but then you can add some variation. So I can add some variation here so they're all pulling out different amounts. You know, whatever. I'm just, you know, just making totally random geometry here. So that's fun to do. And then, you know, I like keeping things parametric whenever possible, so I would like throwing a bevel deformer in here. Maybe putting a angle limit. Actually, that probably doesn't really matter too much here. But we can put that that bevel deformer in here, and we're going to start beveling all these edges. We have to be careful about how big we make it because of how small this piece of geometry is. But we can we could maybe bevel a little bit more. Cool. We could add some extra segments. That's just going to add render time, so I'm actually not going to do that. But now we got this simple little piece of, you know, not overly detailed, but a piece of geometry that's got something going on. Actually, these other edges, I feel like they could use a little bit of love because they will call a lot of attention to themselves. So I'm going to grab those guys and this guy. I'm going to hit I for inner extrude. I want to preserve the groups, and check this out. I can do an inner extrude, and you see it's two pieces. But if I increase this number to above 90 degrees, it'll actually make it one piece. It's a really cool way of kind of getting that stripe in there. So I could hit D for extrude. Now I also need to make sure that's above 90. And you can see I can actually pull that in a really neat way there. I for inner extrude, D for extrude, pull that out a little. I for inner extrude, pull it way in. D, pull it back in. Let's get a deeper one going. It's really easy to start making some very detailed geometry, especially if you're just being abstract. Like, we're just kind of whipping that stuff out real quick. They all get some nice bevels. We didn't do anything too tiny, so I don't think any bevels broke anything. So cool. So we just get that nice simple piece of geometry, but it's something to work with now. So then it turns into something like making a cloner. So we can take this whole guy, throw it into a cloner, and then what do we want to do with it? Well, I'm thinking, do we do a grid? I guess we could do, actually, let's do linear. We're going to do linear, and they're going to keep making copies. But I'm going to say every single one of them should rotate 90 degrees. So now every single one is rotating 90 degrees from the one before it, and now we can start moving them around so they're stacked up in some somewhat interesting ways. And now perhaps I can throw a random effector in there, and the random effector is just affecting movement, so let's get a little bit of spread on these guys so they're, you know, piled up a little bit, some interesting, weird, techie ways. I actually didn't do any. I didn't do any love on the back here, which actually might be fine to have that contrast of surfaces. Now they are intersecting, and I'm actually completely fine with that. We could also add some variation in the scale. I think I want uniform scale. Like I'm just going to have them all be a little bit varied from each other, not a ton. And if they start stretching, it'll stretch the bevel, which will mess things up a little bit. We might not care about that too much, but now it's just about how many of these clones we want. Each clone is actually moving downward, so this could just keep going down and down and down. That'll add to our render time, so I'm going to leave it at something like that. And now we have to put this guy into some sort of box. I'm thinking, if we look at our reference, which is right here, I feel like this might be in a metal box, but I'm not sure. And also, I'm very much just going for a rough version of the vibe there. I'm not honestly overly... I don't care too much about the super particulars, because when you talk about these daily renders, there is a lot of like just playing around until you get something that looks cool. So trying to recreate something exact is very, I mean, I would say pretty much impossible. So I'm going to go ahead and actually copy our original object one more time. And here's something that I kind of like doing. I'm going to scale it way up. I'm talking way up. And now it's so big that we're actually kind of inside of it. I mean, we're not kind of inside of it. We are inside of it. So let's make sure. Actually, I think the part that might be most interesting looking is this bit right here. I guess we could be inside of it, or we could even just keep moving. We scaled it way up, and now we can move this way down, and we can just kind of see this as the background. So what's kind of cool, this reminds me a lot of like when you're in Photoshop. If you're in Photoshop and you make like a brush, like you make this really fancy brush and you just start painting with it, and it becomes like this raw material that's just like tiling everywhere. So by making a giant version of that thing, we can even maybe make another copy of it, and I'm going to rotate it, rotate. I can't see the axis because it's so dang big, so I'm actually just going to go over here and rotate it -90. So it's going to give me this other edge. I'm going to move it over and then pretty much straight up a little bit. That's just giving us some background in which some background for this to hang out in. I'm going to move it on X and Z until it's kind of positioned where it's giving us a little bit of background. Actually, if we move it here and then move it up a little bit, it can look like this whole structure is kind of coming out of this one little piece. And actually what I might do too is make one more copy. These get really big. I'm going to make one more copy of this and spin it to maybe even a partial angle like that. And I'm going to move it over here, and I'm going to make it quite large. And this just becomes something in this background for it to reflect. Like there's a little bit more of that going on. So now it's all about like focusing in on this little piece of geometry here and starting to do some neat texture stuff and seeing if we can catch the lighting and catch some cool reflections. So, of course, they used Octane. We're not using Octane. But let's go ahead and I'm going to turn off my color channel. I'm going to turn on transparency. I've been a big fan of absorption lately. Why don't we turn this into glass, which is 1.512, I think, crown glass. We can use a little bit of absorption. Let's go with a nice... I'm going to go with the teal. Why not? I like teal. I'll even give it a little darkness. I'm not sure the distance in here. Actually, I will test it real quick. I'm going to just go to polygon mode, and I'm going to grab something that will give me an idea of scale. Actually, if I grab that, our z-axis is 100, so that's about 100 big. So that means our transparency, our absorption, at about 100 might be pretty good. I just wanted a little bit of reference there. And then we've got, let's see, what do we got? We've got our reflectance, and that actually has a default specular on there, which you see is adding specular on top of it, which could add to it, but I'm actually going to turn it off for now. Now we just get our transparency-based reflection. And I'll apply this to the cloner, and then actually maybe I'll pop open top coat, and I'm going to make a new material. Maybe this gloss actually kind of by default looks pretty cool, and silicon. I'm going to do a weirder one. We'll do some silicon stuff there, and I'm going to just throw this on our big fellas in the background. I'm not going to worry about the one that's behind us for right now. Of course, this makes everything very dark because the channels are off, so we can always turn off our textures to continue seeing everything. I do want to put an HDR in here, so I'm going to throw in HDR Studio. I don't want the floor. I think the background is still fine. And I just want something for it to see in the distance. So I'm going to open up our browser, and there's something kind of techy looking. I'm not sure. Nothing overly techy looking. Maybe I'll do sidewalk at night. That should just maybe introduce some interesting colors. I'm also going to insert the render settings, which is just a quick shortcut of getting my physical renderer set up quickly. I'll say medium just because it's quick. There's no color channel going on at all, so I don't need any global illumination. But now I've got the physical render set up real nice. Lots of blurriness and everything's being caught that way. In fact, I'm even going to drop that blurriness down just so that renders a little bit quicker, and because I'm on a laptop. Hopefully this doesn't affect the stream too much. In fact, before I go and start hitting render, I'm going to go to my preferences, and I don't do this too often. I can't remember. Renderer, custom number of threads. Actually, I'm not sure how many this computer has. Is there any good way of knowing that? I don't check too often. It's dual core, but then it does the virtual ones. I'm going to try to say 3, and let's just see what happens. The point being is it leaves a little bit of processing power for the stream. Okay, that's going, and it is rendering, and it's not taking too long, so good news so far on that. So we just have no idea what this looks like right now. Okay, neat so far. The refraction's looking great. I think we just don't have anywhere near enough color going on yet, so we just need more color. So I think the magic place for that's going to be probably just pretty much the studio. So I'm going to open up the browser. I'm going to go with something like, let's just throw in the Botanical Gardens for some crazy, for some very bright light. In fact, I might crank up our overall brightness a decent amount. And then here's something that might be interesting. I think I just want to do a quick render region. I just want a little cross section here of kind of like what are we getting overall. Like already that changed a lot. All I did was brighten it up. Now you see we're getting some nice blinged out stuff. It's just what is it reflecting? And now it's a different HDR. So that's looking pretty good. I want maybe another little cross section, get an overall idea of the way this is looking. So the glass is looking great. The absorption is definitely starting to work, where we're seeing through to some of that teal going on. So now what's neat, and we don't get to do this too often, but I guess if you're doing daily renders and experimental stuff like this, you can totally start doing this. In the HDR Studio, there's a bunch of settings that I think you probably rarely touch, and I know I rarely touch, and that's going to be stuff like hue and saturation, because usually we're working with realistic things. But I can like randomly change my hue, and actually if we turn on our preview, and I'm going to scale it way up, I guess we have to see our textures for this, but if I have my preview turned on, I can see what I'm doing here. So I've shifted my hue to, let's go, ooh, look at that, that's really neat. I'm going to crank my saturation up, so now we're getting these really vibrant colors. I think this will be in fun contrast to the teal. It might be ugly, this isn't my area of specialty. We can also crank up our contrast to like really pop that stuff out. I'm going to turn my preview off again, and let's get another cross section and just see what the vibe is. So already we're definitely getting some of that pink coming through. I think, well, here's the main thing that's going to happen. The metal in the background is going to pick up the pink, and then the transparency will then see the metal. So that's primarily what we're getting there. So why don't we go ahead and, I guess I'll just let this main section render a little bit, because that's looking interesting. And I mean, honestly, once you put a bunch of layered refractive pieces of glass on top of each other with a little bit of detail, it's going to go a long way to just filling in detail. Like all these different layers of refractions just start layering up, and everything seems to work pretty well. So, okay, nobody's complaining about the stream being down, so I'm assuming it's good. Once again, sorry for any echoiness and whatnot, but I don't have a microphone, it's just my onboard laptop audio. This background it's so big that there's no detail to it, and that's bugging me a little bit. But the glass, like, I feel like there's a nice amount of detail in there. I guess we could actually tinker a little bit, just because, you know, why not? I'm going to turn off the textures again. This could be interesting, actually. I'm going to delete our bevels of these two. Actually, I deleted the wrong one. That's fine. I'm going to grab this piece of geometry and this piece of geometry, which I think is this one. It's so dang big, it's hard to tell, actually. I'm going to just hit delete. It wasn't that one, so it's these two. So these are in the foreground. I'm actually going to connect them, connect and delete. And why don't I zoom out? And I'm just going to snag kind of... Go away, go away. I'm going to just snag the geometry that we can see. Did I do the connecting? Oh, okay, yeah. This one, I'm going to even rename this just BG for a background. I'm going to grab just kind of the polygons we're seeing in the viewport a little bit, and I'm going to grow my selection maybe a few, and make sure that once, okay, now if we're all zoomed in for our proper render, you see that we're actually seeing all the geometry. All the rest of this is useless. Well, I guess it's there for reflection and whatnot. So maybe I'll split it off, actually. I'm going to hit U. Oh, yeah, that's what we should totally do. I'm going to keep this selection, hit UP, and that splits that bit of geometry. We can also do a selection tag now that I think about it. But I'm going to go ahead and split that off to... No, it's a better idea to do the selection tag. Sorry, keep changing my mind. I'm going to create a selection tag. Set selection, so we got a new selection tag. I don't really care what it's called. I'm going to leave that there. And I'm actually going to duplicate this cloner, delete the material from it, though. And just for speed's sake, I'm going to bake down this bevel. So I'm going to say current state to object. That should bake that down. Now I'm going to tell this cloner to clone onto an object, and the object is going to be background. And I'm going to limit that to the selection. And the selection is not going to be based off the vertexes. It's going to be based off the surface. So now we're limited to that, and we're cloning onto that selection. Should be. Why aren't I seeing a bunch of cool looking clones? Background is this. That is the selection. I'm telling the cloner on the object to distribute on the surface, and there should be 100 of them. Where are they? Are they in the surface? Means they shouldn't be in the volume. Really weird. Why do I have to crank this up to these really big numbers before I start seeing anything pop up? It's running really quick. In fact, we can turn on render instances. I don't know why that is running so dang, or why that number is behaving oddly. Oh, you know what? Actually, I didn't think about it, but this might have, oh, this totally does. We are limiting, I didn't know this, but we are limiting this cloner to this background selection. But it's still cloning throughout the entire object. But then if it's outside the selection, it's like, wait, don't show that one. So we're having to crank that number up. So we could actually go back to what I was originally going to do, which is let's split that selection out. So now that becomes I split this geometry to its own piece of geometry. I'm going to just rename that background clone. And now when I take my cloner and say clone onto that, and there is no selection, everything is cloning. Now I am creating 8,000 clones on just that piece of geometry. So now it's behaving the way I expect it to. So if we go down to 100, now we are seeing 100 of them. Interesting. I'm going to go to my transform tab and rotate these guys. I'm not sure on which axis. This one. So they're all running a little bit parallel. -90. And I could actually make a duplicate of that. I'm going to group it so now I can grab the object inside the null. And I can spin it, so I can start getting some different orientations going. So I can keep making duplicates of our original single, simple piece of geometry. And I can keep changing the way it is showing up in our scene. And that's working pretty well. Let's make a bunch more. Neat. I'm going to add another random effector. Boom. So we got some randomness. It's moving them around. That's fine. I'm primarily concerned with scale. Once again, I want uniform. I'm going to start telling. Actually, I'm going to say absolute scale because I want all these to start getting bigger. So the point here is you'll see that in a very simple way, I'm just making a lot more duplicates of this original same piece of geometry. I want to get a couple of these guys showing some more of their details. I'm going to spin this around to there. We're actually seeing the back side of one of these. I'm not sure which one it is, so I'm going to try and delete it. Is it the original? No, that's fine. But anyway, all these guys are starting to layer up in a really neat way. And what's cool about this is I just want to throw my metal material on there. So those aren't going to be refracting or anything. So that shouldn't really cause us any trouble there. So now we start getting this significantly more detailed background. And honestly, like once we zoom back into our main little kind of abstract city island, maybe those started turning a little too big. So I can start shrinking them down and even adding more clones. I'm going to keep changing our random seed until I get ones I really... Oh, I kind of like that. We're getting a pretty good vibe. It's layered up really nice. I like it. So we got the metal spread out through all these other ones, looks pretty good. We got the bevels going, the scales look good. Let's go ahead and just hit render. It's going to choke rendering for a bit. Now it turned very dark. Oh, I turned off our HDR Studio. I'm not sure why I turned that off, but let's go ahead and turn that back on. Without that, there is nothing for it to do. Okay, neat. Nice and dark here. I guess the point, this shouldn't be any different. It should be mostly our background is going to give us just a little bit more detail. Okay, cool. Everything's going well. We're starting to get a pretty cool city vibe going. What's neat, and I don't even know where these are coming from, and here's where I was talking about those other things. See how we get like these bright highlights like this? That's just where like a piece of this geometry happens to reflect and then reflect off of something else and bounces. So if we were looking at somebody's reference and it's like, oh, look at these awesome little city windows, we would probably be thinking that they applied a special material to make those happen. But no, it's a happy coincidence. It just happened to pop in there like that. And it would be really kind of hard to know that that was the case. So we're getting this cool metallic background. I do like the way it looks and it's picking up these colors really nicely. Obviously that would look a lot better if we had the setting cranked up, but for the purposes of the live stream, we're going to keep that low. And I want to see mainly what this area looks like, so we'll let that go a little bit further. But right away, I know for sure that we want to brighten up our reflections even more. I mean, perhaps crank up our HDR up to be decently brighter, just to get some more light flooding through here. I think it would probably be pretty cool to... Yeah, I like this. We're getting all these nice little highlights. It's almost like some implied futuristic city. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we want to go... We can even pop top coat back open. Top coat, I've got our original material selected. I'm going to select the gloss, and I want to modify it to actually be significantly more reflective, because I think just compared to the glass, it's not quite blinged out enough. So I can crank that back up a little bit more. We could put a bump in there, but I'm going to keep it clean. I think clean's going to work well for here. I'm going to duplicate our glass material, and I'm going to change the absorption on this one to be kind of a vibrant orange. And I'm going to copy the child in there, so now we're going to make half of them green and half of them orange. Just color-wise, I want to see how that looks. Hopefully it looks cool. And then let's go back into our HDR Studio. I'm going to crank up our saturation more. I'm going to crank up our brightness significantly more. That we might be overdoing it, but it's always easy. Like, always go too far and then pull back. Is a good rule of thumb. I'm going to do a silver here and just see what our overall vibe is. Whoa, okay, already that's looking nice and blinged out, like much more of a crazy implied city. Yeah, that's neat. I mean, it's going so far that it makes me want to... Like, we could, to such a degree that we could start randomizing the colors of these backgrounds. I guess since this one's going well, we could start tinkering a little bit more than I was maybe originally planning. Let's do something perhaps a little advanced. Well, not too advanced. It's simple Mograph stuff. I'm going to turn off our island, and let's just concern ourselves with our background. Now, I'm going to go into our gloss material, and we're going to have to go outside of top coat for this, because we're going to be doing something very specific and fancy. What I'm going to do is go into our reflectance, and then we have a layer color. Like, what color is the layer? And I'm not actually even sure if this will translate through. If we set our layer color to, let's say, green, okay, it does turn green, so good. I'm going to undo. Inside of our texture, I'm going to put a Mograph color shader. This color shader is going to be based off of, I guess it could be based off the index ratio, but it's going to be based off of the color of our objects. Now we actually I'm going to actually create this via just a new material entirely, so we can render really quickly. So I'm going to kind of hide everything except for the clones we're looking at. Actually, I'm going to not do that because that looks really cool seeing it. Actually, that looks so cool that I think that we should leave it like that. Now our background that was those kind of original building parts, those are just gone. They won't even render anymore. And now we just get this layered up. Even cooler. Anyway, the point being is I want to now colorize these based on a color shader. So just for quick testing purposes, I'm going to, in the luminance channel of this new material I created, I'm going to throw a Mograph color shader. And by default, I don't think that's actually going to look like anything. It's just going to be white. What's good is you see we're rendering nice and quick. So what we need to do is inside of this cloner, we need to start adding, I'm going to add a Mograph random effector. But I don't want it to randomize the position, I want it to be affecting the colors. So as soon as I turn that on, you're going to see like, wow, that's super, super crazy. Is that actually accurate to what we're rendering? Okay, it's not actually accurate to what we're rendering. That's what we're actually rendering, which is cool. So you see we're getting all these crazy colors. So just kind of generically by default, that's working well. I actually like working a little bit cleaner than that, which is a little bit harder to do, and I can never remember the settings specifically. Like if we change color mode to user-defined, and we start making it darker, see that doesn't work. Do we have to turn on alpha strength? And then maybe make, okay. By turning on alpha strength and then making that black, now you see we're getting black and white. Now is it truly black and white or is it gray? Okay, you see when we render it is actually gray. This might be happening because we have render instances turned on. If I turn that off, we should be getting better feedback. I don't know if it's actually any different, but this is actually the feedback we're seeing, so that's cool. Now the random effector, this one, and we should even probably name it random color, just so we can keep it separate. This is actually affecting the minimum -100 and the positive 100. And I think that's pushing it too far into the white. I'm not sure, so I just have to play with these. Okay, there we go. You see if I take our -100 and pull it up to 0, now this is randomly affecting this from 0 to 100, which is giving us a true anywhere from black to white. So now that's a really nice color that we have complete control over. And now that's feeding through the color shader. So that means the color shader is being fed a black to white gradient of objects. So that means it's really simple for us to go into a colorizer and just color this however we want them to be. So the background vibe before was kind of a brownish metallic color, and actually I don't mind that. So why don't we just start adding in some colors that kind of live in that family. So right now we've kind of pulled out some rust colors. Maybe we can go into some very deep green, maybe a very desaturated but medium blue, just some random colors. So now all of these should be randomly getting colorized, these, based on what we're feeding them. I'm actually going to pull our yellow off to the edge because I like it the least, but maybe one would be fine. So, and actually same with green. I like these muted colors better. So I'm going to push green off to the edge, and we should live more, you know, whichever one we let stretch the furthest is what range we'll likely be seeing the most of. So I'm going to render, and now you just see the colors we end up with. For whatever reason, we're seeing a ton of yellow, so my little theory there just in this particular layout did not work. I'm actually going to swap the yellow with the blue because I don't see that many blues. I'm going to pinch that more. Let's pull the green out more. Render. Let's see what we end up there. All right, there we go. Not too bad. I like that color scheme. That green's actually popping out a lot, so I'm going to desaturate it, and it should be a little bit more friendly. Okay, cool. So we get that all figured out. I'm going to now copy that channel, and we don't need that material anymore at all, but I'm just going to go back into our reflectance, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to paste it in our layer color. So now the color of the reflection is now based off of what we were seeing. So now it's as simple as just saying you are actually based off of this gloss material. Let's go ahead and, I guess in my render settings, I'm really quickly just going to drop that down to like 1, hit render, so it's going to be, should be pretty quick even with all these reflections. We're going to let that bounce around a little and see what we got overall. Now, just based on the amount of light that's bouncing into here, it's actually pretty dark, but at the same time, those are supposed to be the background. So that was a lot of effort, but now we're getting some nice color variation going on in there, and I don't dislike it. I would maybe like a little bit more color in there. We could possibly get that just by messing with some of our reflectance. We're already in here, so I won't bother opening up top coat. But we could just maybe, you know, we can fake up the reflectance strength a little more. I could increase the roughness a little bit, which is going to start catching light from other areas better. I guess just, I mean, it's fake, but by pushing the brightness beyond 100%, it should be getting everything in there brighter. Let's let that render again. It should be relatively quick once again. Now that they're broader, you're seeing we're getting better overall stuff going. Also, let's keep in mind that a lot of these colors are probably getting somewhat destroyed based on the type of metal we decided to throw in there. So we could pop open top coat again, or I could just go back into our Fresnel here, and we have our different types of conductors. And I can set that to something a little bit more neutral, like silver, or I'm going to put on aluminum, which is a very silvery look. And I bet this whole, now I'm not aiming for that silicon look. So now you'll see as soon as I pull that aluminum type Fresnel, everything's a lot brighter. And now we're feeling a little bit microchippy, which is kind of neat. I don't mind that. Of course, all this should be in the context of our nice city here. I haven't saved this yet. That's very dangerous. I'm going to save this. Let's see. I guess I'll just throw it in here. Since I don't have any of my normal folders. What is this? Week 13? Might be week 13. We'll call it Microchip City. Maybe Autobot City. Okay, so it's saved now, so now we don't have to be so scared of hitting render. Alright, look at our super awesome blinged out crystal section of the city that we're focused on. It's going to be pulling in a lot of the color from its neighbors. That is working great. You know what, this is actually really fun. We'll spend more time on this just because I'm liking the way it's looking. And this it's actually going a long way, and it's something I observe all the time in those daily renders, and I totally get it. And the thing is like especially with the quick tutorials we're often doing, like even Nick, when Nick does a tutorial, he's taking a sphere and he's like, okay, it's a sphere, throw the sphere in, clone it. But it's so little time to have extruded all these little detailed parts, and look at what we're getting out of it. And we didn't go overboard. Like, we spent a lot more time, put more lines in here, and made all these a little bit different, a little more detail. Like, think of how much even better that would be. So our colors are actually quite strong now. Like, the background is calling a lot of attention to itself. So I think I can pull my reflection back to 100 now that the aluminum is not making it go overboard. And some things that might be cool would be, let's add some fog. Why not? Let's add a little bit of environment fog in here. If I enable the fog, then we should immediately be getting some good feedback here. You'll see if I start shrinking this, it's going to start blowing it all out. So we actually want to see, that start fading in, but we still want it to be there a little bit. Let's make it what's a weird mist? I guess a red orangey mist is a weird color for a mist. Just to be seeing what our fog is doing, I'm going to put a nice neutral gray in place of all of our textures. Actually, let's grab, and I'm just going to right click and say apply. Boom, that should apply. Now it's overriding all materials. Now we should just get that fog. Should render very quick. So now we got that strong fog. Obviously too strong. It's overriding stuff we're seeing a little bit, so let's go and pull that back. And to pull it back, we could decrease the strength, or we could just increase the distance. And of course that's arbitrary based on the scale you happen to be working at, so I'm just going to have to trust what I've got here. Render. Actually, without any GI turned on, we're actually not getting kind of a colored feedback. If I turn on my GI, which should still render incredibly quickly because of the low settings, this should be giving us a little bit more of the feedback. And now you'll see how much this environment, actually this environment might kill our background. I'm going to turn off effect background because I don't want that to kill our HDRI studio rig. So okay, as soon as I turn that off, you see our HDR is feet coming through. Hopefully that doesn't affect the reflection, but we won't know that for sure until we turn it back, everything back on again. But yeah, we're definitely getting that red vibe coming through. But you see, it's actually a lot less as soon as we're not black. As soon as it's white, we actually see a lot less of it. It's actually making me want to pull this back to a smaller number. And let's get a cross section again. When we see over here and over here, we want to be seeing a lot more of that red. That's where I guess we get some. Let's do right there. This is actually the furthest point in our scene, which is interesting. But yeah, it's starting to bleed a little bit out there, so you get the fog effect. You could probably pull it back a little bit, but I'm not even going to test it again. So that's cool. Another thing that is always fun to throw in there is I'm going to throw in a light. I'm actually going to turn off our global illumination so we can get the fast renders going again. And why don't we make a quick visible light? Let's make it not omni. Let's make it a square parallel spot. And then we're going to rotate it so it's pointing upward. And if I grab the little dot down here, you see I can make it bigger. So we're getting this nice big square box. So I want that bigger, and I want to go to the visibility, and I want to make sure that the outer distance, which is actually this one, I want to make that pretty tall, because we're then going to pull this down kind of into the guts of our city. And now we want to make sure that our outer radius, which is under details, so we have our outer radius, I can start increasing that until we're well beyond the edges of our scene. And now that should just kind of give us a visible light that's blocking everything. I'm going to turn on actually no illumination. And just temporarily, I'm going to turn off our fog. So now all we should be seeing is the effect of this foggy light kind of coming up from underneath. So like right away, already, that's cool. That's looking pretty neat. Some things we could do potentially is increase our outer distance so this actually goes up higher. Pull it down to make sure we're getting full range. And then I'm going to pull down the overall brightness so we have more of the fog, but it's less visible. So what I want that to do is be a little bit more underlit. Actually, I'm going to pull the brightness back up again because that was... Yeah, that's cool. So now I get this brighter light down there, and it kind of fades up. So now I guess that could also be kind of in that red range for that fog. Maybe a little bit orangey. So that's actually going to work well kind of hanging out with our environmental fog. And then, do I want to add it on top of this one? I think I do. I'm going to copy and paste that light, and this one I'm going to put back to white temporarily. And let's go into our noise, and I'm going to add some noise. Let's add some visibility into our noise. I hate being limited to like just these couple, but in general it's just kind of like some waviness going on in there. In fact, why don't we use wavy noise? I'm going to crank up our contrast pretty high, lower our brightness so we're just seeing little hints of it. And I'm actually going to turn off the other light so we're just seeing this one. Let's hit render and see what that gives us. So right away you can see the scale of the noise is too small. Like we're getting some nice choppiness, it's breaking out the pattern, but it's too small. So you actually have to increase all three of these numbers. So I'm going to say 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. And now it should be 10 times bigger. So let's see what that gives us. All right, cool. So now we got this bigger fog, and we're actually kind of seeing what it's doing a little bit. That's neat. Actually, now that I think about it, this might be cool. I'm going to go, we rotated, this is the local noise. I'm actually going to turn off local, so it should be global. So I should be able to set this down to like 500, 500, and then I'm going to say 10,000 on Y, because what I want is these kind of streaks coming upward. I don't know if that's the correct orientation, but let's render and see what that does for us. It does seem to be working, like we're kind of getting these beams, and they do seem to go in an upward angle. We could shrink our X and Z down to maybe about half that amount. I'm going to check on the chat. Yeah, okay, everybody seems happy. Everything seems to be streaming well. So cool, we're getting these upward streaks, so this should give us kind of this upward movement going along with the city. And now we take that and we combine it, and actually the streaks are working really well, so that makes me want to make our outer distance like push... Actually, no, outer distance is pushing it left and right. Oh no, that's visibility. So yeah, outer distance is the up. So we're pulling this up. So I want these streaks to go upward even more. So they should be a little bit taller. Not bad, not bad. Another thing is we have this fall off. This is actually interesting. If we drag this fall off all the way down to 0, and actually, we don't want edge fall off now that I think about it on either of these. No edge fall off, because edge fall off is it fading out as it goes left and right, and all we care about is it going up and down. So by pulling back that edge fall off, you see it's actually pulling up. It's getting a lot brighter, a lot higher up in the scene, but it should still fade out. The fall off, I can't click it without it killing the render. The streaks are a lot stronger and they're going up a lot higher. So that makes me want to click on this, leave the fall off down low, but make it not be nearly as tall. If we pull it back down to that range, I'm going to go and just do a stripe here. Okay, so we got the beams coming up and they fade out real nice. There we go. That's pretty much exactly what I'm aiming for. So we get these strong streaks. So now let's go ahead and turn on our red glow and see what those look like combined. Because that should be kind of an additive process. So we get this red glow and we get this white one beaming up in it. So the white one's looking good, but I think I want to make it a nice bright yellow. Not all the way, pretty bright. And in fact, we might even crank the brightness up a little bit above 100 because the yellow is going to be pulling back from it. And we'll see what that does. So this should be yellow on top of the orange. Actually, that yellow is quite strong. I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to make it a little warmer, but pull it closer to white. And actually, we're going to go to exactly 100% brightness. And right now, honestly, like I tend not to go this far in tutorials because now it's all like just based on your eye. Like, does that look cool? Does that look cool? Let's pull this out. Let's pull this back. You just keep doing that. So me changing these specific settings is just me making it look good. But if we went and we said, let me just do this actually. Why not? It's so quick. I'm going to duplicate this cool vertical light. And instead of going vertical, what if you're like, well, let's not go vertical. Let's go horizontal. So instead, I'm going to do Y of 300, and we'll do X and Z of 10,000. So we get those really big, tall stripes that way. And let's just see. I mean, it might not look good, but then again, it might. But we should be, yeah, see, so now we got this totally different thing where we start getting layers of fog traveling upward like this. Completely different look. And it's just changing two settings. So like getting really specific and really dialing these in. At this point, it's arbitrary. Now you're using your eye. Now you're just deciding what you think looks good. So, I mean, we could leave all three of those on. Let's just go ahead and do an overall render. So this is just adding a lot of atmosphere into our scene. And that might overdo it. We might want to pull all these back. Because this is in the context of like them being pretty much black. I mean, they are actually completely black. And actually, I didn't think about it, but we don't have our environment on anymore. Our environment might be a little bit pointless now because our original low fog is there. I mean, I guess it is still coloring things a lot, but I mean, that's looking pretty spooky by itself without even getting into all the cool refraction and reflection. But I'm curious how much the fog and all these lights and refractions and whatnot are going to affect our overall render. I'm actually not sure if I can do this, but I'm going to type in some X's into, you can just type in whatever. And I wonder if that makes it so this will actually render transparent, or if it still overrides and just doesn't work. Okay, they are transparent, so that's cool. Now, okay, our orange is obviously very much overriding all of our kind of refractive color. So that makes me want to either pull way back on our environment or maybe just turn it off. Let's get a quick horizontal stripe going here and see what that does overall. So by turning that off immediately, you see that it's not overwhelming that way. And now with our under orange light, that might actually be kind of what we want, where it's going to give us that underlit vibe, but without turning everything orange. We can always pull back on how strong that is as well. Looking pretty good. Alright, so we got those nice stripes going, we got some different colors going. I think I'm going to grab both of our transparent objects and I'm going to drop our absorption to half the amount, 50, just so that they're a little bit more their own thing. And I'm going to go ahead and why don't we start setting this up maybe for kind of a proper render. Maybe we can even spend a little bit of time in Photoshop. We'll have to probably do a relatively low quality render here. Let's see, if this is a city, that means we use a long lens, right? Oh no, is that true? Do we use a long lens? Yeah, because cities would look flattened out. So we'd actually use a flatter lens. So I set that to a 200 millimeter lens. And I can see everything gets very flattened out. That might be too much. We could do like a 100. And now it's a lot flatter by default. But, and it's, when I'm testing things and when I'm tinkering around with cinema, it's actually very rare for me to even worry about changing my camera. But for anybody who's very used to Cinema 4D, something that makes Cinema 4D look like Cinema 4D is the default camera focal length. So changing that actually can go a long way. I'd love to get some depth of field rendering in here, but I feel like with all the different things we've layered up, that might just start killing our render time. So why don't we keep this one nice and crisp? We're already getting a lot of kind of implied depth via our kind of fog layers. So now you'll see that this is supposed to be my area of focus, but I don't want it dead center, so I actually scooted it off to the side a little bit. You don't typically want your subject dead center. It's kind of an intentional artistic decision you should be making. I've kind of grown fond of this particular aspect ratio. We want to make sure we're rendering out to about that. So I'm actually going to set it to maybe 1,000 wide. No, let's leave it at the 800. Well, I guess that makes it into, well, let's just drag this out. Okay, if I do that and then do, maybe I could tell. Okay, I guess it's that. So now when we render, it'll be exactly what we're seeing in the viewport. You see as I drag these kind of in and out, you see this dark line is pulling in. I do actually kind of like it a little bit wider. So actually I might pull that out a little bit like that, maybe rotate our perspective a little lower, kind of scoot this here. Okay, that should be cool. What am I forgetting? We don't need GI. Everything's turned on that we want turned on. I'm going to save it, even though it's a different name. So this won't be a super high quality render, but I am going to crank it back up to kind of our default of like 2.2. And I'm going to let that render in the background. It's not going to be a super high res. It should go relatively quickly, and then we can jump into Photoshop, maybe just do a little color correction, a little vignette. Not things I'm an expert on, but I can do a little bit. And you can always do like a texture overlay, which is always fun. So let's let that chug along. So like I was saying, like playing with depth would be really neat. We're not going to do it here for the proper render. I'm actually going to duplicate this render setting and select it. And let's even add the word depth. But just for the sake of like tinkering with it, if we were to tell these materials not to render, or to go ahead and render, so it's overriding our defaults, then we could go and do something like create a null and say that is our focal point. Let's say right there. I'm pretty sure this should be right. Yeah, I was pretty sure that was correct. And now we can tell our camera to focus in on that. With our relatively long lens, it means our depth isn't going to be very shallow. So let's keep that in mind. So I'm actually going to make our f-stop quite strong because of how shallow our camera is. Or it's not, because our camera isn't shallow. We have to make our f-stop really tiny. And we are in the slightly cranked up render settings, so I'm going to drop that back down to 1. Turn on depth of field. I'm going to leave all those fogs on, but all the refraction, everything else is turned off. And let's go ahead and just render a little stripe right there if we can. Just want to see what that does and how long of a hit that gives us. Let's keep in mind I'm also rendering in the background with less cores than I usually am. It's going very slow. Yeah, well, that's why we just did that as a test. I don't think it's going to be, it's going to take too long to do anything practical. So I'm going to go back to my other one just because that's why I duplicated, so I could just jump back. Let's see how long oh, look at that. Not too shabby. Like our glass is looking great. I'm glad I made that thicker. At a glance, in fact, I might even restart this. Our fogs are very strong. Like, I like it. I like the fog, but it's very strong right now, and the stripes are very pronounced. So I think I would grab our vertical light, which is this one, and this one is our horizontal light. I would grab my vertical light and make it dimmer, and probably not nearly as long. Like, let's drop that by 1/3. Let's say times 0.66. So that's going to be a little bit shorter. Maybe let it render a little bit more. And with all those layered up, especially with this horizontal fog, like I feel like I'm going to lower our brightness and crank up the contrast a little bit. So we'll get that high contrast, but not very much of it. And then because of just the way these all are layering up, I'm going to actually pull back on that as well, on our base overall one. In fact, just for the purposes of doing this real quick, why don't we set the render to go to 0.5, which should be really quick. I have to tell these to turn off. X or C or whatever. So even with all this stuff turned on, the quality is gonna be crap, but it'll give us the overall vibe of what we're getting. Very, very important to do that kind of thing. I don't need to wait 10 minutes to check if the fog is too much contrast. Better, but it's actually still quite strong. I'm kind of surprised. I'm going to grab all 3 of those lights. I'm going to say X times 0.5. So all of them are half of their current brightness. And I'm going to say render again. I wonder how low we can drop this. If I say like 0.1, is that will that render super quick? It seems quicker. The interesting thing is, even though it seems quicker, I'm not really seeing that much difference in quality. Pretty interesting. All right, now that's starting to recede a little bit. So like the original, it's that. Now we're on that, which is quite a bit more. So we see more of the city, and we don't need it to be quite so overwhelming. Especially if we were going to go and do some post work on this, we would probably want to render out a bunch of different passes. I'm less interested in that part of it. So I'm not going to worry about that. Let's see. Here's something I'm going to do. Probably shouldn't. I'm just enjoying making this picture, but kind of want to see more of the glass buildings, like in the lower area right here. So I'm actually going to duplicate that cloner and let's make them not spread out so much. Very little, actually. I'm going to pull this down, and then I wonder if I just hit T and scale. I'm going to scale this whole dang thing up. No, I think it should get its own random effector. I'm going to duplicate the random effector. I'm going to feed that in here. It's actually, twice the randomness now, which is fine, and I can just spread all those guys out. How many do I want? Maybe a few more. I want no height variation. Let's get rid of the height variation on there. Those should all level themselves out quite a bit, and I can pull them all down, and it's just going to fill in the ground a little bit. I can even move them. Maybe say like that. It's not much. But that's kind of what I wanted to see. It's just a little bit more there, a little more glass. I don't like the way it was terminating so abruptly right there. So by covering that up, it should hide it. I'm just going to, whatever it pops out this time, I'm going to say is good. I'm going to go to 2.0. Let that chug. And how long was this first one taking? How long did we let that render? About 3 minutes. It should take about 4 minutes for it to go. Did I let any of these finish? I guess that one sort of finished. I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to... Oh, I can click on it and go over here and go edit copy. And now I can go right into Photoshop, and we can start working on it. Because this should be pretty much what we're dealing with. So it's a tiny little thing, but and really low resolution, and it's not exactly what we're going to end up with. But why not start working on it? So I'd say, and this is definitely other people's areas of expertise, but I'm going to maybe make a gradient. We'll do a simple vignette. I know that's a thing. I'm going to even center it on the buildings because I want that to be the focus. Mine was backwards, but I don't care. I'm going to hit Command-I and invert it. And now we could set to overlay or multiply. If we say overlay, it's going to brighten it and darken it, which actually on this is working pretty well. It's an overall dark image, so that doesn't hurt. Something that's kind of fun to do is doing a gradient overlay on your vignette. So instead of it just being black to white, we could overlay via some colors. So we actually get a lot of control over what this should be. So here's actually our back corner. So we could say go dark, but not super dark. Let's go this and maybe make it a little bit blue. Now the blue's not going to pop out too much, but it's going to start feeding in. It's going to start turning maybe a little purple. And now we can go to our light area, and we could maybe add in some intentional warmth to it. So we can start pulling in a little bit of that orange. Now there's already a lot of orange, so we could start trying to fight against that with perhaps another color. Ooh, actually adding in a little bit of this blue. Kind of like that. And we could go significantly further on that, but that's what our vignette is doing right now. And of course, we got the basic object here. I guess I'll make an adjustment layer. How do I do that? I don't do it too often. Is it just, oh, I guess these are just adjustment layers. So we can do things like, I do like the vibrance shader. I hate when people use it on photos, but it's really cool to use on like various artwork. You use it on a photo, like on Reddit. On Reddit all the time, people put these beautiful photos with all these amazing colors, and I look at it, it's like that is clearly the vibrance shader on a regular photo. And if you overdo it on a photo, it just looks fake. But we could totally like crank this up all the way and make this start looking kind of like a Christmas tree ornaments, like super duper saturated. And actually, pulling back vibrance on the pulling back vibrance is really neat the way that pulls it back. I don't know the algorithms it's doing to do this, but if we went and we pulled back saturation all the way, it's going to turn black and white, which is cool too. But if we pull back the vibrance, it keeps some of the color, but it kind of intelligently pulls it in certain areas. So I kind of like it. I like it being a little bit more muted. But we probably shouldn't worry about vibrance too much until we've done perhaps a curves. Can't beat throwing in curves. So we can start pulling out the middle reds, pull up the middle reds. I'm kind of digging the blue look. So maybe in the shadows, I'm going to say there should definitely be a lot less red. Actually, is that the shadows? Interesting. I guess the midpoint's doing more what I want. As I pull the red down, it's getting a little stronger. You can go into the blue channel and brighten that up a little bit, or you can pull the peak in. Let's see. Really, I'm just wiggling these around. I'm not familiar enough with them to like have an intuition for where they should go, so I'm just kind of eyeballing what I think looks good. You can go to RGB and do a little bit of color ramping here. Brighten up the top, darken the mid, maybe even crush that a little bit. It's not too bad. That's interesting. We could go way color balance. Start doing, I don't know. We probably shouldn't be mixing all these up at the same time because now they're fighting each other a little bit. But really, I'm just playing around. So this is pulling the midtones around. We could go to our shadow area. I don't think we want to mess with shadow, but that is not making it look better. Highlights, perhaps a little bit more, a little brighter. It's actually interesting. Like our brightest points are actually we're seeing back the furthest. And that is happening because that's where our lights are most visible. We're seeing through the most light. So our city is actually one of the darker points. That would be less of the case if I took my vignette and moved it below here. That should start focusing in things a little bit more. But we've been kind of designing it with that on the top, so I guess we'll have to leave it. Probably would have been good to have those above it, but that's fine. Let's check on our render. It is done. Hooray. So now we can start working from what will be our final for now. I'm going to copy that. We can go back into Photoshop. Who is Nick? I'm not actually sure how to pronounce his last name. He's another guy from Chicago C4D, and he's going to hang out, but because we didn't have internet at the studio, I couldn't bring him in. But anyway, we've got our good version of the image now, so I'm going to paste it. Everything automatically gets cleaned up. Hooray for adjustment layers. We do have all that grain going on, which we could try and fight, maybe with a little dust and scratches. Actually, I always like dust and scratches. I like the effect it gives, but it does definitely like kind of kill your detail. But that looks really neat. I love the effect you kind of get overall there. To such an extent that So I kept my original, and then here's the dust and scratches, and then it's like, well, how can we kind of blend those together? Even overlay the image on top of itself. So all I did was take my dust and scratches, overlay it on top of my original image, and we get a bunch of contrast pulling out and doing a lot. I kind of like it, but it's doing too much. We're losing a lot of the detail, so I'm going to do about a 50% on that. So it's kind of popping everything a little bit more. Our highlights get hotter, our shadows get darker. Like, it's cool. I like it. And honestly, at this point, I would say the last thing, if I'm thinking along the lines of people, and I can't speak to this for sure because I'm not sure the way, you know, I'm not sure exactly what he does, but if we, I'm going to search for textures, and actually I want to just search for, oh, I never know why it does that. Let's go to this window. I'm going to search for texture. And I want to search for texture folders, and now this should pop open. This is the texture kit textures, so I know we own those. So now I just want to do a little texture overlay here. So I tend to jump over here, and I can just start scrubbing through these and trying to find a neat-looking material to overlay. That concrete one actually might be kind of neat. I spent a lot of time making these tileable. So you see like this crack terminates here, but it actually goes right up to the top and things like that. But right now I just want to find kind of a nice, just something that I think will look cool on the overlay. Probably don't have to overthink it too much, but why not spend a little time going through some of these. How do we start from the top? I wonder if we should go more to the middle. Ooh, that one's kind of neat. Yeah, why not? Let's try that one. I'm going to open that in Photoshop, copy it, paste it. It's fine. It's a different color thing. It's way too big. Not surprising. I'm going to shrink it way down. This might overdo it because I like it because it's kind of gritty and it's like grid and it's techy. But that might actually overdo it. So we're going to put this in the topmost layer. I'm actually just going to set this to overlay, and right away you're going to see like lots of textury stuff happening. Now it's actually, yeah, that's the problem. Like if I pull it up even a little bit, it's really calling a lot of attention to itself. I'm going to invert it, but it's still, I mean, by inverting it, I actually did a lot. I inverted it, so now you see we get very strong lines like that. And if we go very light with it, then we can kind of start getting like these little weird, like, so it almost starts turning into like highlights going on. So it's actually not too bad. But I want just more of a grungy thing going on. So I'm going to go back over here and start scrubbing through a few of these. Maybe we could even go to like a rust. Rug, dirty. There's a nice rust. There's some rust. There's some sand. This one might be weird. Let's take that one. Photoshop. Select all, copy, close, paste, yes, overlay, shrink her down, find where it's most kind of textury. Like that. We'll do that, and I'll try the overlay again. Overlay. Now we need to go obviously pretty light with it. I'm going to invert it because I always think I feel like that makes grunge materials look less identifiable. Now that I kind of inverted it, actually I might even crank our opacity up a bunch and start moving around until we kind of get in the spot where like it looks kind of cool. Like there's all that little break up there. I do like those lines implied, but I think I want it even more subtle. And now we get those kind of, you know, it's whatever. It's just some texture stuff on there. Spend more time, spend less time. You could even take that and duplicate the layer again, and then scoot it maybe to a different spot. Like if there wasn't quite enough grunge up here, I could do something like that. And then mask it. I'm going to put a mask on there and turn on a brush and scale the brush way up. And let's see, we're on the mask. I'm going to paint some black, I guess right there. My brush isn't very soft. Get rid of all the hardness. So I'm going to paint it in and then maybe just invert the mask. So that should just show up right there. So I could paint those in. And I mean, now if you want to spend a lot of time, I don't think I did the mask very well there. You see it's a little hard edge. I thought I changed my brush so it wasn't. But I'm just going to blur it. Blur. Good enough. You know, if you want to spend a lot of time, you could go and start actually Maybe I have to pick the soft brush. It's still pretty hard. I must be doing something wrong. Oh, I'm on pencil. That would explain it. Yep. Yeah, but anyway, now the point being, you could do things like, let's see, there's probably a shortcut for this, but I'm going to merge visible. I'm going to select it, and then copy it, and then undo, and then paste it, so I've got kind of a flattened version of it. I bet there's a shortcut for that. I don't know it. And I could do something like really crank my levels, so we get like this high contrast. Ooh. I actually wasn't intending for that, but I like the way that looks. Okay, we're going to do that to the real image. I'm going to put an adjustment layer, and we're going to crank that up. I like it. It kind of pulls up all the textures. I like it. I'm going to take this overlaid image, which we're seeing completely, and let's go and mess with some of its contrast. So we just kind of get these really bright points. And I might even go into hue saturation and pull back some of the saturation. And now we can blur it and then screen it. So I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. Or we could probably do, if we had some sort of depth blur or something, we could probably do something a little bit better, but we could do some kind of blur like that. I'm not sure how strong we want, but if I set that to screen, then we can start getting these really nice, let's just crank it. So like you see what that's doing, like wherever we have those kind of highlights, we get this kind of blinged out glow. So that, it's all about layering. And even this, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just grabbing layers and adding and tinkering and pulling and pushing. Like even right now at this point, I often do something like we could now at the very, very end throw in a hue saturation and then just start moving the hue around and maybe find like what looks like a significantly better color. Like already, like I like all of these honestly, but not that so much. The red's kind of cool. Don't like the yellow, but like that, I like that. So like even at the last step, it's like okay, completely change the way it looks. And if you ever watch people's time lapses, or pretty much anybody who puts a time lapse of them doing these kind of daily renders, you'll see that they very often it's like there'll suddenly be this giant change. It's like the entire concept just shifts around. I'm gonna pull back this one grunge overlay. It's showing up a lot right there. Now it's kind of cool. It's just by it being an overlay. It almost looks like It almost looks like there's imperfections on the. How do I get rid of that? Well, anyway, right around here you see there's like imperfections that looks like they're on the building, even though we didn't do any texture work inside there. This is all pure reflection and pure refraction. But I think that looks pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and save the Photoshop document so you guys can get that as well. What did I call this? Microchip City. Cool. We went a little longer on that than I was maybe planning on, but I think we were getting a really cool end result out of it, so I think it was well worth the time. So thanks for checking out this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in another one.